Good morning. This is Kim Blaylock with SDG Bible Study. That's the SOLI DEO GLORIA Bible Study coming to you on this Sunday morning, April the 6th, 2025. Hope everyone is well. Hope everyone is ready to prepare their heart and mind to be in God's house with God's people this morning, worshiping our great God this morning. This morning we will continue in our reading from the Everyday Gospel, a daily devotional by Paul David Tripp. We're going to be in the book of 2 Samuel this morning. We'll be in chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7. So 4 chapters to read this morning. So let's dive into it this morning. 2 Samuel chapter 4. Then Ishbosheth, Saul's son, heard that Abner had died in Hebron, and he lost courage, and all Israel was dismayed. Now Saul's son had two men who were commanders of bands. The name of one was Bana, and the name of the other Rechab, sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, of the sons of Benjamin, for Beeroth is also considered part of Benjamin. And the Beerothites fled to Gittaim, and have been sojourners there until this day. Now Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son crippled in his feet. He was 5 years old when the report of Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel, and his nurse took him up and fled. And it happened that in her hurry to flee, he fell and became lame, and his name was Mephibosheth. So the sons of Rimmon, the Beerothite, Rechab, and Bani went forth and came to the house of Ishbosheth in the heat of the day while he was taking his midday rest. They came to the middle of the house as if to get wheat, and they struck him in the belly. And Rechab and Bani, his brother, escaped. Thus they came into the house as he was lying on his bed in his bedroom, and they struck him and put him to death and beheaded him. They took his head and went on the way leading to the Arabah all night. Then they brought the head of Ishbosheth to David at Hebron, and said to the king, Behold, the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, your enemy, who sought your life. Thus Yahweh has given my lord the king vengeance this day on Saul and his seed. And David answered Rechab and Bani, his brother, sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, and said to them, As Yahweh lives, who has redeemed my life from all distress. When one told me, saying, Behold, Saul is dead, and thought he was bringing good news, I seized him and killed him in Ziklag, which was the reward I gave him for his news. How much more, when wicked men have killed a righteous man in his own house, on his bed, shall I not require his blood from your hand and purge you from the earth? Then David commanded the young men, and they killed them and cut off their hands and feet and hung them up beside the pool in Hebron. But they took the head of Ishbosheth and buried it in the grave of Abner in Hebron. Now to chapter 5. Then all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, Behold, we are your bone and your flesh. Previously, when Saul was king over us, you were the one who led out and brought in Israel. And Yahweh said to you, You will shepherd my people Israel, and you will be a ruler over Israel. So all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David cut a covenant with them in Hebron before Yahweh. Then they anointed David king over Israel. Now David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned 40 years. At Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months. And in Jerusalem he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah. Then the king and his men went to Jerusalem against the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land. And they said to David, You shall not come in here, but the blind and lame will turn you away, thinking David cannot enter here. Nevertheless, David captured the fortress of Zion, that is, the city of David. And David said, On that day, whoever would strike down the Jebusites, let him reach the lame and the blind, who are hated by David's soul, through the water tunnel. Therefore they say, the blind or the lame shall not come into the house. Then David lived in the fortress and called it the city of David. And David built all around from the Millo and inward. And David became greater and greater, and Yahweh the God of hosts was with him. Then Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to David with cedar trees and craftsmen of wood and craftsmen of stone walls, and they built a house for David. Then David knew that Yahweh had established him as king over Israel, and that he had lifted up his kingdom for the sake of his people Israel. And David took more concubines and wives from Jerusalem after he came from Hebron, and more sons and daughters were born to David. Now these are the names of those who were born in Jerusalem: Shemua, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Ibhar, Elishua, Nepheg, Japhia, Elishama, Elida, and Eliphalet. Then the Philistines heard that they had anointed David king over Israel, so all the Philistines went up to seek out David. And David heard of it and went down to the fortress. Now the Philistines had come and spread themselves out in the valley of Rephaim. Then David asked of Yahweh, saying, shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you give them into my hand? And Yahweh said to David, go up, for I will certainly give the Philistines into your hand. So David came to Baal Perazim, and there David struck them down. And he said, Yahweh has broken through my enemies before me like the breakthrough of waters. Therefore he named that place Baal Perazim. And they forsook their idols there. So David and his men carried them away. Then the Philistines yet again came up and spread themselves out in the valley of Rephaim. So David asked of Yahweh and said, and he said, you shall not go directly up. Circle around behind them and come at them in the front of the balsam trees. And it will be that when you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the balsam trees, then you shall act promptly, for then Yahweh will have gone out before you to strike the camp of the Philistines. Then David did so just as Yahweh had commanded him, and struck down the Philistines from Geba as far as Gezer. Now to chapter 6. Then David again gathered all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. And David arose and went with all the people who were with him from Baal Judah to bring up from there the ark of God, which is called by the very name of Yahweh of hosts, who is enthroned above the cherubim. And they drove the ark of God on a new cart, that they might bring it from the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, were leading the new cart. So they brought it with the ark of God from the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill, and Ahio was walking ahead of the ark. Now David and all the house of Israel were celebrating before Yahweh with all kinds of instruments made of fir wood, and with lyres, harps, tambourines, castanets, and cymbals. Then they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, and Uzzah reached out toward the ark of God and took hold of it, because the oxen nearly upset it. The anger of Yahweh burned against Uzzah, and God struck him down there for his irreverence, and he died there by the ark of God. And David became angry because of Yahweh's breaking out against Uzzah. And that place is called Perez Uzzah to this day. So David was afraid of Yahweh that day, and he said, how can the ark of Yahweh come to me? And David was unwilling to move the ark of Yahweh into the city of David with him. But David took it aside to the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite. Thus the ark of Yahweh remained in the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite, 3 months. And Yahweh blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. Then it was told to King David, saying, Yahweh has blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that belongs to him on account of the ark of God. So David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom into the city of David with gladness. And so it happened that when those who were carrying the ark of Yahweh had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed an ox and a fatling. And David was dancing before Yahweh with all his strength, and David was girded with a linen ephod. So David and all his house and all the house of Israel were bringing up the ark of Yahweh with shouting and the sound of the trumpet. Then it happened as the ark of Yahweh came into the city of David that Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked out of the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before Yahweh, and she despised him in her heart. And they brought the ark of Yahweh and placed it in its place inside the tent which David had pitched for it, and David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before Yahweh. Then David completed offering the burnt offerings and the peace offerings, and he blessed the people in the name of Yahweh of hosts. And he appointed to all the people, to all the multitude of Israel, both to men and women, a cake of bread, and one of dates, and one of raisins to each one. Then all the people went, each to his house. But David returned to bless his household, and Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, "How the king of Israel has glorified himself today. He uncovered himself today in the eyes of his servants' maids, as one of the worthless ones shamelessly uncovers himself." So David said to Michal, "It was before Yahweh who chose me above your father and above all his house to appoint me ruler over the people of Yahweh, over Israel. Therefore I will celebrate before Yahweh, and I will be esteemed even more lightly than this, and will be humble in my own eyes. But with the maids of whom you have spoken, with them I will be glorified." And Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child to the day of her death. Now to chapter 7. Now it happened when the king inhabited his house, and Yahweh had given him rest on every side from all his enemies, that the king said to Nathan the prophet, "See now, I inhabit a house of cedar, but the ark of God inhabits tent curtains." So Nathan said to the king, "Go, do all that is in your heart, for Yahweh is with you." Now it happened in the same night that the word of Yahweh came to Nathan, saying, "Go and say to my servant David, thus says Yahweh, are you the one who would build me a house to inhabit? For I have not inhabited a house since the day I brought up the sons of Israel from Egypt, even to this day, but I've been going about in a tent, even in a tabernacle. Wherever I have gone about with all the sons of Israel, did I speak a word with one of the tribes of Israel, which I commanded to shepherd my people Israel, saying, why have you not built me a house of cedar? So now, thus you shall say to my servant David, thus says Yahweh of hosts, I myself took you from the pasture, from following the sheep, to be ruler over my people Israel. And I have been with you wherever you have gone, and have cut off all your enemies from before you. And I will make you a great name, like the name of the great men who are on the earth. And I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and I will plant them, that they may dwell in their own place and not be disturbed again. And the unrighteous will not afflict them any more as formerly, even from the day that I commanded judges to be over my people Israel. And I will give you rest from all your enemies. Yahweh also declares to you that Yahweh will make a house for you. When your days are fulfilled, and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up one of your seed after you, who will come forth from your own body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. When he commits iniquity, I will reprove him with the rod of men and the stripes from the sons of men. But my loving kindness shall not be removed from him, as I removed it from Saul, whom I removed from before you. And your house and your kingdom shall endure before me forever. Your throne shall be established forever. According to all these words and according to all this vision, so Nathan spoke to David. Then David the king went in and sat before Yahweh, and he said, Who am I, O Lord Yahweh, and what is my house that you have brought me this far? And yet this was a small thing in your eyes, O Lord Yahweh, for you have spoken also of the house of your slave concerning the distant future. And this is the law of man, O Lord Yahweh. And again, what more can David say to you? And you know your slave, O Lord Yahweh, for the sake of your word and according to your own heart, you have done all this greatness to let your slave know. For this reason, you are great, O Lord Yahweh, for there is none like you, and there is no God beside you, according to all that we have heard with our ears. And what one nation on the earth is like your people Israel, whom God went to redeem for himself as a people, and to make a name for himself, and to do a great thing for you and awesome things for your land, before your people, whom you have redeemed for yourself from Egypt, from nations and their gods. Yet you have established for yourself your people Israel as your own people forever, and you, O Yahweh, have become their God. So now, O Yahweh God, the word that you have spoken concerning your slave and concerning his house, establish it forever, and do as you have spoken, that your name may be magnified forever by saying, Yahweh of hosts is God over Israel, and the house of your servant David shall be established before you. For you, O Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel, have revealed in the hearing of your slave, saying, I will build you a house. Therefore your slave has found courage in his heart to pray this prayer to you. So now, O Lord Yahweh, you are God, and your words are truth, and you have promised this good thing to your slave. So now be pleased and bless the house of your slave, that it may be forever before you. For you, O Lord Yahweh, have spoken, and with your blessing may the house of your slave be blessed forever. That's going to conclude our reading from the biblical text. Now for the devotional reading. Minimizing, ignoring, or doubting the perfect holiness of the Lord will never produce anything good in you or through you. We don't have the vocabulary or categories to describe adequately the infinitely perfect holiness of our Lord. Nothing and no one is perfectly pure all of the time and in every way. The Hebrew word for holy means other, set apart from everything else. In the complete holiness of his holiness, God is the great eternal other. There has never been and never will be anyone like him. His holiness is not a part of him, it is his essence. He is holiness through and through. He is holy in love, holy in wisdom, holy in power, holy in faithfulness, holy in anger, holy in grace, holy in patience, holy in judgment, holy in mercy, and so on. In all that he is, all of the time, he is perfectly holy. In this way, he is unlike us. Here's why this is so important. Only when you understand the utter holiness of the Lord will you understand the horrible sinfulness of sin. Only in light of the holiness of God will you take his holy law seriously. Only when you understand the holiness of the Lord will you be blown away by the generosity of his gift of redeeming grace. Easy believism and moral boundary breaking begins with forgetting the shocking holiness of God. I am convinced that this is why God, in protective love, has preserved for us shocking reminders of his uncompromising holiness. These stories are hard for us to read. As sinners, we are tempted to think that God is overreacting or that his anger has too much control over him. It is important to humbly admit that when we wince at accounts of God's acting in holy anger, we do so because we wish God were just a little bit more flexible, a little more like us, and maybe not so holy all the time and in every way. His otherness makes us uncomfortable, and it should, because confessing how unlike him we are is the doorway to seeking his grace. One of the uncomfortable holiness stories is found in 2 Samuel chapter 6. The Ark of the Covenant, over which God's presence rested, was being transported on a cart, chapter 6, verses 1 through 11. This was a violation of God's law concerning transportation of the Ark, a visible representation of God's presence. God had commanded the priests carry it with wooden poles. The cart began to tip, so Uzzah, walking beside the ark, reached out to steady it, touched the ark, and was immediately struck dead. Only holy God is our holy God is serious about his law and will not compromise his holy standards. This is why the cross was necessary. God would not turn his back on our sin. A penalty had to be paid. Rather than making us question the goodness of God, the death of Uzzah should cause us to celebrate the grace of Jesus that allows sinners to stand in the presence of a perfect, holy God. And that's going to conclude our reading from this morning. Yeah, I've always, it's always been hard reading to read of what occurred to Uzzah. There was Uzzah didn't want the ark to tip over and hit the ground, so he reached out and grabbed it by his hand. But all along there, God gave them instructions on how to transport the ark. It had the rings in the side. It had the poles to be slid through, and they throw it up on their shoulders and they carry it. But they did not do this. And God, in his holiness, judged Uzzah. And it can for us in our sinful natures seem harsh, but when we look at our sin in light of God's holiness, it makes sense. Yeah, it does. I hope you understand that this morning. I hope you will find yourself in God's house this morning, giving God glory in everything that you do. Have a blessed day. Soli Deo Gloria.